Hi all. All I can see on the screen is a cat's tail. Teresa, what's your cat's name?
This is Abby, Abby the Gabby Tabby.
Yeah, Abby the Gabby Tabby. Yeah, somebody who's an attention seeker from hell. All right, now. So what I was going to do today, because I was a little bit unprepared for today, I wasn't too sure what we're going to do. Barbie, just so you know, I've just said to Courtney and Teresa, because this is chart delineation practice, and you guys have sort of are reasonably versed in knowing how a chart works. What I thought would be the easiest for me to do is I've actually got to. I think this is the race. I've got to try and help Robert pick a horse race winner today. So we're getting back into a bit of practice because in about a week's time we've got the Breeders' Cup, I think it is, or Kentucky Derby's on first weekend of May. And so Robert and I, for the past number of years, have decided to try and pick the winners of that. And we tend to pick the winner of the race, the Kentucky Derby, and that sort of stuff pretty well. However, we try and get the pick six, so which is like six races in a row. And I think for the last 5 years, we've sort of been, we've either had four winners and two seconds, and we keep missing out by like that much. But the reason it's worth it is because those pools are really big. So if we crack it one year, it might be $1 million, and that'd be really handy right now. So that's the reasoning behind why we do it, and I sort of invested a little bit of time. And it started out as, and I'm just going to give you guys a bit of background. It started out for me, and this is probably an important thing to just go over. I didn't get into horse racing or picking horse race winners because I wanted to make money. I tried to find something, and you probably all find this to some degree. I tried to find something that would prove whether astrology works. I wanted to see if planets had an influence over the outcome of events. That was really what I started doing back in the 90s. And so I needed something that I knew was going to happen in advance, where it was going to happen, when it was going to happen. So I needed that location, the time, that it was a short duration, and that it had an outcome. And the reality is, um, the only thing I could find was a horse race. That was it. And so I decided to start looking at the influences of planets, and I was specifically looking at planets, conjunct the midheaven at the time of the race. And I found that I started to pick winners. I got 10 in a row, and I thought, oh, great, I've just broken the Da Vinci Code. And then what happened was the next race came along, and I dumped a lot of money on it thinking I'm going to win, and it came like fifth. And I went, why? So I didn't win the money. And that set me on the path of where I am today. So what I've done is that for many years I've taught people how and why this sort of works. But what happened was that with what I've learned is, yes, you know that the planet has a physical effect over the outcome, but can you do that for every race? No, it's not that easy to do. Um, I've got someone trying to get into the in here right now, but I've eh, bear with me. Uh, it's a lady here in Australia, but she's an elderly lady and she wants to try and join, but she's not that tech savvy. So I'm getting messages at the same time, asking me questions how to get in. And so that's where it all sort of started for me. And I found that I could pick winners consistently, but only with certain planetary energies. And what I also found was that certain planets had more influence than others. And this is what led me to believe that astrology is not only, we are physically affected by planetary energies. I'm getting, which link is my next text? Can everyone just bear with me a second? I'm going to pause the recording, resume recording. Okay. So primarily what happened was that I ended up um, realizing, and it wasn't until years later, what was happening. So it all comes down to the speed of the planet which they turn. Hi, Carolyn. So the planets turn at certain rates. So it's like a day cycle. The sun and the moon are in balance with each other. So they take about 30 days or thereabouts to turn around once. Venus takes, here comes Anne now. Venus takes about 243 days. So it's really, really slow. But all the planets like, hi Anne, you got Mars, which is 24 hours and 32 minutes, I think. Jupiter's about 9 hours and 50. Saturn's around 10 hours something. Neptune and Uranus are around 16, 17 hours. And Pluto's slow as well. Because what happened was I found out years later that these particular planets that seem to be so far away, like Neptune, why was it reliable to pick a horse race winner? Whereas the sun or the moon were not that reliable at all. So this is what set me on that path of trying to find out. And then a number of years ago, I did a presentation to a seminar for the IAA before. This is way before I was involved in it personally. And Robert, who's Robert Giarratano, you'll see him hanging around the traps. He might even join us a bit later. He approached me after doing that and said, do you want to help me?" And that's how I sort of started. And I said, "Robert, you're asking me to actually try and pick a winner for every race. This is impossible. Like, there's too many planetary interactions, and at certain times it's really hard. Right now, for instance, it's really hard because we've got a chart where everything's really close together. So all the planetary energies are blended. But so what I'm going to do is I will take you through how, I'm just going to share the screen. I'm going to share my whole screen. How I might go through this from an astrology point of view. Now, as I said, Teresa, bear with me. I am using Placidus. I'm not using the whole sign, only because that's what I've been used to doing. However, I take into account a number of sort of whole sign techniques. So what I've done is I've just put up a chart for a race that's on Friday the 17th. Is that today? No, that's today for you. Oh, it was this afternoon. That was already run, has it?
Yes.
Ah, it can't be that race then. But let's see if we can pick a winner without even knowing. How's that? So the race I was talking about is this one. So that's this afternoon. Now I haven't even looked. There's your horses, okay? Just there. There's a number of them. There's what, 7? But we're going to go back to here and I'll explain to you what I tend to look at and how this works. So there's a lot more to it. First of all, when you're looking at, say, picking a winner in a race, generally the winner will be reflected through the midheaven. There's no question about that, okay? So the midheaven will always tend to be the success point. If you think about it, it's the top of the chart. It's the outcome of events. It's the success of the chart. Now, I'm going to just also correlate. You can take some notes if you want to, but as I said, the moon and the sun are not that reliable on their own, I should say. Venus is not reliable on its own, meaning it just spins too slowly. Pluto's the same. And Mercury is pretty much the same. But Mars and Saturn and Neptune, Uranus, Jupiter, they all move very fast. And when they're in a predominant position, they tend to influence the outcome of a race pretty well. So if that Jupiter was sitting on the midheaven, the first thing I'd be doing right now, because don't forget the midheaven will also be Cancer, I'd be looking for a horse that its name was related to Jupiter. Now, people say, "Oh, but do you look at the jockey? Do you look at this? Do you look at that?" And the answer to that is, yes, you can, but I don't go into that level of detail. All right. And the reason why is because there's enough information here that's going to make you confused to start with, right? But why would I be saying if Jupiter is on the midheaven, is that's going to be more likely to be the winner? And the reason for that is because the planetary energy is sitting right up there, influencing the outcome at that moment in time. Because remember, this midheaven and the chart is evolving and moving at about 4 degrees every minute. So if it's moving at 4 degrees every minute, it won't take long before it moves away. So what will happen is in this particular case, this particular race, we have no planets on the midheaven. So it's going to be hard. We do have Jupiter sitting up in the 10th house, which is a strong position for it. And to be quite honest, if you think about it on a whole signs point of view, Teresa, with a Virgo rising, it won't be in the 10th house, it'll be in the 11th. Okay? So at the end of the day, you've got to look at everything relatively. One of the most important factors is the moon's position. Now, the moon itself doesn't do a great deal in inverted commas in by itself in a chart, but when it's aspecting a planet, either a conjunction or an opposition, when it's very strong by degree, because we're talking about angles, and angles are really important, and degrees of the chart are really important. Okay, so the moon becomes important when you've got a situation. Let's say, for example, I'm just going to throw this as an example. If I've had Venus sitting here at 22 degrees and see how the midheaven's at 21, if that moon right now was over here in Scorpio at 21 or 22 degrees and in exact opposition, and therefore by aspect, by degree, hitting off that midheaven point, then that moon Venus may have a strong influence on that race. Okay? That's how the moon works. Even though Venus is not powerful on its own, the moon acts like an amplifier to the planetary's energies. That's what I've found over the years. Okay? What we have as a big problem right now is we have all this. This Mars and Saturn energy is going to be very strong. The Mercury is not so strong on its own, but you're talking about a big conjunction here. You've got 5 planets plus Chiron, all sitting there in Aries. Now, that's going to have an impact over the fact of anything that's happening in the world at the moment. And especially if, say, for example, Jupiter was in square with one of those, then it would be even more so. All right, so how do we approach this? This is probably not a great chart, to be quite honest, to try and pick a horse race winner. But what I then do is when I look at a chart like this, because if you're going to try and pick 6 winners in a row, you don't pick your chart, you got no choice. You have to work with what you've got. Okay? So what happens here is the ruler of the midheaven. Who's the dispositor of that? You got to look at which planet's getting strengthened. Planets close to the ascendant, and descendant don't seem to have as much influence. So here I'm looking at the dispositor of this, and being Gemini, it's Mercury. Mercury is ruled by Mars here because it's in Aries, and Mars is in Aries. It's very powerful. So I would be looking at this and saying the influence over that midheaven is going to be coming from Mars, and Mars conjunct Saturn. So you might even find, and it's hard to tell because when you get a lot of planets together, as I said, it's hard to tell. Why it's hard to tell here, and I'll explain, and I might go round in circles a little bit, is it'd be easier to pick the winner if that Mars-Saturn if this midheaven degree was, say, 6 degrees or 7 degrees, because it would be by degree in an exact aspect. And when I say exact aspects, when you're working with a horse race, it is literally the 1 degree, maybe 2 degrees maximum that you work away from. So this is, to me, looking at it going, I've got a strong Mars, Mars-Saturn rulership coming on here to the midheaven, so that's probably going to be the strongest influence. Why is that also the case? Mercury also rules the ascendant. So the ascendant is less of an influence, but the fact that its ruler is in Aries conjunct Mars, you're probably going to find that the horse race winner is a combination of a horse. If there's a horse in the race that's a combination of Mercury, Mars, and Saturn, even if it's just Mercury and Mars, but probably Mars and Saturn, because Saturn is more powerful in the outcome of things than Mercury. Mercury is more of a blender. I don't see a strong moon influence because the moon's changed sign. It's not sitting right on the sun, and it's definitely not in exact degree. Now, these are the sorts of things we look at. Then what I do is I do this. I'll go over here and I'll say, let me just check what's missing. So I'll go to the reports area and find my midpoint listings. You'll notice that I only use a 1 degree orb for midpoints. So what I'm looking for is there anything aspecting the midheaven of the chart that is in direct aspect to it? The answer to that's sort of no-ish. You do have Mercury node, but it's not, see, the D is direct, so it's actually hitting right on the exact degree. But I will look at Mercury and I'll look at Mars. But how's this? Mars is the midpoint between Mercury and Saturn, and it's within 28 minutes. So it's very powerful. These three are all working together at the moment. There's no question about it in this particular. And we're feeling it, I reckon. The interesting thing is here we also have Mars as the midpoint between the moon and the node. So to me, being the moon being an amplifier and the moon will move fairly quickly, that's indicating that that moon is going to give strength to that Mars because it's pulling it into an aspect by midpoint degree. Hope everyone's following me because this is, I'm throwing stuff at you that you may not have even looked at before, and I understand that. But if you're looking at it to qualify, what I'm doing right now is I'm looking at the chart and trying to determine, well, what's the planetary influence that's going to have most influence over the winner here? And then I go and look at the actual horses and see what their names are. So, and then sometimes I cross backwards and forwards because sometimes and I should say quite a lot, you don't find a horse that absolutely fits a name of a horse. Let's just say as an example, Mercury, Mars, and Saturn. If you had a horse called, yeah, Fast Trip with the brakes on, then you're going to have that horse is going to win, right? Because I'm trying to do a fast trip with the brakes on, and that would be Mercury, Mars, and Saturn all working together. So you go, oh yeah, well that horse is definitely going to win. And even if it wasn't, if that was the name of the horse right now, it'd probably win. Just simply because you can see the energy here, that's really strong, and it is all that stuff. The moon is at a midpoint between Saturn and Uranus, and also Mars Uranus. It says here also the ascendant and Lilith, but don't worry too much about that one. But that's a fairly close one. Let's have a look at the closest aspects. Neptune is Sun node, but these things are probably not as much power. The reason being, remember the midheaven? The midheaven ruler will have an influence over the ruler of the winner of the event. So therefore, and don't forget these are short duration, only go last for a few minutes. So that energy is going to stick there for a while for the duration of the race. And in this case, we have Mercury with Mars and Neptune. Interesting. It's also the midpoint between Mars and Neptune, and Mars is obviously Mercury, Saturn. So you've got all these planets working together. It's a bit of a tough one. I'll sometimes do this as well. I'll go to the 90-degree dial and I will move this around to the midheaven point and see. At the moment, it's not showing anything up particularly, but within degree there, you've got the node Neptune. And I might go and hit the moon up. It too is, let's go, Venus part of fortune. Not too sure how that will affect. And you've got Mercury, Saturn. So the moon is in some way triggering that Mercury, Saturn as well. So when you put all those together, to me, the winner of this race is definitely going to be a Mercury, Mars, Saturn association. You would pick that anyway, but the strongest planet, which one's the strongest planet out of that whole lot at the moment? Anyone can tell me? Go on. Take yourselves off.
Mars.
Of course it is. Yeah, it's rulership. Not only that, when it comes to horse racing, Mars is extremely reliable as a winner. If you had a horse in that race right now called Motorsports, I'd probably back that too. However, the only one I might not back it on depends on how big that Mars and Saturn influence is. If I had Fortress, for example, a horse called Fortress, which is a big stone walled fortress used for battle, that's Mars and Saturn together as a combination. So let's go to the horse race itself. This will be an interesting one because I'm doing it live, and if I stuff it up, I stuff it up. And now we go through and look at breaking down the horses. So what I'm going to do, Alpine Princess. So what you need to do now is break these down into astrological names. I usually get a spreadsheet or I write it down and I put them into a spreadsheet and I set them up that way. Well, let me show you if I can find one. There we go. There's me doing videos.
Not the one that says running away. Isn't that the most Mars
What's
name?
that?
There was one called Running Away.
Oh, is there?
Yep.
Running away. Yeah, that's very, very, very good, Courtney. Let's just look. Chilled. If that's not Saturn, what is? If it's chilled, it's cold. But chilled, don't forget, can also mean to be chilling out, to be relaxed. So
Also
that's
daydreaming.
not so
Also,
Mars. What I do, let's do this. I copy that one. I go up to here and I'll put it in here and I'll say, what's it mean? And a peignoir is a long, loose-fitting outer garment or dressing gown for women. Anyone know that? Did you know that? Did you, Caroline? That's pretty good if you did, because I had no
Very
idea.
50s, 60s.
Hmm.
You gotta go watch those old movies.
So, yeah,
Barbara
it's a nightgown.
Stanwyck.
So a nightgown would not be really Mars, would it? So Mars and Mercury and Saturn. Running away sounds like a good one. Our daydream girl. So someone's
Neptune.
daydreaming, that's Neptune, right? A girl is Venus. So it's probably not quite the right one. Gin
Gin
Gin.
Gin. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that one. That's
So
Mars. I mean, there could
Gin
be
Gin.
alcohol in gin gin because could be gin, like gin. You drink gin.
Now,
That's
the interesting thing is, let me show you something. A Gin Gin usually refers to a town in Queensland, here in Australia. So, and the other thing is an alcoholic beverage such as a gin. But the interesting thing is, it's a rural town in Bundaberg, but it's also it's Aboriginal origin, which usually means footprint. Many places in the thick scrub. The other thing is they often say refer to people as a gin, right? So I know that because I know from an astrology point, an Australian point of view, not an astrology point of view, also has multiple meanings, and this is one of the things you got to look at. What's new? Eunomia. Eunomia? Is that what it's called? You pronounce it?
you need
Um,
them.
so is a term originating from Greek good order, lawful conduct, or governance
No,
according to
that would have
good
been
law.
Jupiter. That would have been a Jupiter.
That would be Jupiter. Okay. Eye candy. Well, that's an interesting one. So eye candy will mean someone's, generally
Could be
speaking, that's
Venus or Mars or Venus,
if it's
maybe more
Venus,
candy.
Venus or Mars. An alpine princess. Now, does anyone know what a princess? So you always have your little Rex Bill's book handy. And does anyone know what a princess is astrologically?
Is it the sun?
Maybe. Let me just have a look what Rexy Baby says. I usually pretty good with it, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Yes, you're right, but it's also the 10th house in Jupiter. But it's definitely the sun. Princes and princesses are the same. I thought it was, but yes. So we're talking about the sun. So the sun's not in its strongest position, although that's pretty good. So if I was to look at all these, knowing what we've described, I think you're right, Courtney. The most likelihood one for me is running away. However, it depends on the whole thing about Saturn. Running away is to separate. So Saturn is separation. Mercury is using your feet to run off, and off we go. Let's have a look at who won.
I'd like to offer there is some Saturn in there because in order to run away, you have to have something to run away from. So there has
Fear.
to be a restrictive situation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or
And
fear, something like that. So there's a number. So if anyone want to make a choice outside of that one, from what I've described, technically speaking, that should be the winner. Now, what I'm going to say as a disclaimer is that when you've got all these, and I'm doing this fairly quickly. Sometimes, if I was really serious about it, I might be sort of sitting on it for half an hour, come back to it, and then I make my decision around that. And I usually go, 1, 2, 3, and 4. If I was to look at this, I would probably, based on where the chart and they all are at the moment, I would nearly say that I think the winner would be something like running away. who would I? And the other thing, don't get me wrong, you should also have a look at the horses, the actual horses' form. So if you look here, it's had one start, it's had 9 starts, 4 first, 1 second, and 1 third in its total results. And its last race, it came fourth. So you can, this is the sort of thing that I might look at if I'm really serious about the race. But we're just playing with what's here at the moment. Let's get rid of that. Did I just kill the race, did I? Oh, no, that's right. So from here, I want to go to results. Full charts. Where are we?
England, I think.
Keeneland, wasn't it? Yeah, Keeneland, 17th. It's this race, isn't it? Who won? Alpine Princess. Look. See, running away came fourth. Interesting. So it was the Sun and Saturn, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah. It's
And then
interesting.
Unamia.
I would play Alpine Princess.
What's that?
I'd play the Princess. I do that one.
Okay, so Barbie, explain to me, because this is a classic example. Hang on, my thing keeps getting in the way and it does my head in a little bit. All right. Explain to me on here why you would have picked Alpine Princess.
Okay, well, for instance, okay, when we went back and we were looking at names, and then we looked at Mars and Saturn. Mars already has this Saturn thing going on, and you also have that running away. Saturn, it's not going to go so far with Saturn. Saturn says no, you can't.
You're
We're
not
going to
allowed
restrict
to.
that.
Yep.
Yep,
Good
we're going to
point.
restrict that. And so then when we looked at Princess, and Courtney said it's the sun. Well, the sun, it's the boss. It's the boss. And so right there, I would go from there. I would just say, yep, that's it. That's the one. It's the boss.
Okay. So the interesting thing is, I personally, and this is from experience, would not have picked that, and I probably would have looked at this race and gone, "Oh God, it's going to be depends on which one you're going to get." The reality is, when you've got all these planets together like this, it ain't a good time to try and pick a horse race winner. That's the reality of it. So if you wanted to get into gambling with horse racing, with astrology, you're going to find it difficult during these periods. There might be other things, like we looked at midpoints. We didn't see strong Sun. We did see a Sun and Jupiter connection. Was it Sun and Jupiter? No. That's really what, to be an Alpine or Sun Saturn connection. We didn't really see a Sun Saturn connection. But to be Alpine Princess, if that's the Sun, and we do have Jupiter in the 10th house, by the way, ruled by the moon. And the moon is in exaltation. So the moon is in a strong position. But these are, how do I put it? Like with a lot of astrology, you can make square pegs fit in round holes as often as you like. The reality is you've got to actually stop and go and make a choice on those things. But I can tell you now, after 30 years experience of doing this and picking successfully a lot of races, I would not have picked that horse to win. I agree with you, Barbie, that realistically there's no horse in that race that fits the astrological connections 100%. Meaning this, that running away, you're correct, Barbie. Mars and Saturn together, Saturn will restrict Mars. It'll be more likely to be locking you up
Right.
than letting you run away. If this was Uranus conjunct Mars and it was Mercury, that'd definitely be running away, right? Because of freedom, getting out, or Jupiter even, or just Mars and Mercury together. But with Saturn there, it puts the brakes on. I totally agree with you, Barbie. So it didn't really fit 100%. But what also is the case is none of these horses fit 100%. None of them.
No, they don't. But and it's also Chiron is in this mixture of with that sun.
Let's do something different. Let's
Okay.
let's work on the same race day because we're here. and we don't know the rest of them. But let's go back to a time earlier. Let's see, when was this one running? So this one was running at 1 p.m. I'm just going to do a few. This is literally what I'd be doing. So I'm going to go to here. I'm going to rectify that chart, and I'm going to make it 1 p.m. and apply it. Now we have Saturn right on the midheaven. Look, well, it's not right on the midheaven. It's actually 17 degrees. I've got this. Can everyone still see that?
Yes.
Okay, the reason I'm doing that is because I've got you're sharing my screen, stop sharing, sitting right across the degrees at the top of the chart. So I don't know about you guys, but I can't see that properly. So here we have a situation where we have Mars ruling the midheaven. It's not conjunct, okay? So it's gone past already. If it was conjunct, it'd be very powerful. We have the moon has only just gone in to Taurus. It's still conjunct the sun. But once again, now we have Mars being the dispositor in Aries. I will then go and have a look at the reports, go to the midpoints. That's trees, hang on. So where's midheaven? There we are. Sun, Saturn. So this is a strong one. That's a very strong Sun, Saturn. So although we had that other horse win, which was very strong sort of Sun, Saturn, which is Alpine Princess, we also have the Moon and Mercury. We also have Saturn and Chiron, the Moon and Mars. These are all, and Mars and the Sun. So we have a situation here where you've got.
Can we stop for a second while you're here in the reports? Do you look at any of the stars? Pick stars. You can go into that right where you're at, and you can go slide down.
Okay,
and you can in reports, and you can look at the stars and see what
the
could be
answer
out
that
in heaven.
the answer to that, Barbie, is if you're comfortable doing it, do it. But I've sometimes stuffed up because I don't generally. But I'll give you an example of why I know that it's not so much the fixed stars, but even the asteroids. So at the moment, I've got Juno sitting over here, for example, right?
Right.
I leave that in there because I find that some of these asteroids, if they're in a really strong position for whatever reason, have an influence. I remember, having Juno sitting on the midheaven of a chart, but not realizing it was there because I didn't have it in there. And guess what the horse's name was that won the race?
Relationships or something.
No, it was Juno.
Juno. Okay, there you go.
So it made me laugh. I'm like, God, how could I miss that? Right. So Juno was actually the one that won the race. And it was when Juno, the actual asteroid, was sitting on the midheaven of the chart. So these things do occur, but I tend not to because there's a lot of stuff to play with. But I'm not dismissing it, Barbie. I think it's worthwhile having a glance. My point's this. If it's exactly right on by degree, 100%, then yes, count it in. If it's not,
with fixed stars, you really want to give one orb. So I mean,
that's it. Not yet. One orb or even exact. But that's the sort of thing I'm talking about. Here we have a very interesting chart again because we've got not only Mars and Saturn are sitting as the midpoint of the midheaven to the moon and the sun sort of thing. So we've got a very strong sort of sun, moon, Saturn, Mars coming together with Mars ruling the midheaven. So we also have Jupiter in an exact square to the midheaven, although the midheaven will be moving away. The thing with horse racing, when you've got, I'm going to do this for a second. Let's say I animate this. I'm just going to show you what I mean. So I've animated the chart, and I'm going to move by minute. So if I go backwards, literally by minute, you can see how quickly it moves. So if the race was starting here, for example, at 12:10 p.m., and Mars was sitting there, I would definitely say that Mars is going to have a big influence over the winner. Why? Because even after the race starts, the midheaven is going to approach Mars closer. When you're picking a horse race winner, take into consideration that sometimes races start late. They might start 3, 4, sometimes even 10 or 15 minutes late if you've got problems with horses. If that's the case, and you're relying on something that's on a midheaven basis, sorry, but the midheaven's already passed the planets. It's gone. The influence is gone. And you could call it from a purely a horse race point of view, oh, the horses got unsettled because they were delayed in the start, so the horse didn't run as well as it should have, or something like that. And seriously, that happens. I've been witness to that quite a lot. Not all the time, but it has happened over the years. So I tend to give more weight to planets that are in the one, it's in the 10th house to start with, and number two, where the midheaven is approaching. So if that was the case, this would be very strong. But if we go back to the time we had, which was, I think, what did we say? It was 12:30? No, it was later. It was 1 o'clock, wasn't it? And it's already gone way past. So at this stage, we're at 17 degrees. This is moving further away and therefore won't have as much influence. But generally speaking, because of its strength at the moment, I'd be still looking for a horse that is Mars Saturn or Sun Moon with Mars Saturn. If we go to the horses, let's have a look at the horses in this race. Let's do a quick analysis. Olympic Star. Well, there you go. That's an interesting one considering what's there. So the Olympics, or Olympic, is also known as a sporting event, which is Mars, and a star is the sun. And Olympics, also something Olympic, is also quite old. So that's actually quite a strong one when you put all the combinations together. She's got to go. How would we define that into an astrological sense? It's like she's got to go. So think about it in context. I'll give you another example. When defining horse races, or horse names, I should say, sometimes it's what it means as a sentence is more important than the combination of the words. Okay, when you break it down. I had a situation where a race was running and it was Mars on the midheaven. This is years ago. And the horse that won was called Hear That Bell. And you might go, how does that relate to Mars? In simple terms, if someone says, hear that bell, it's like someone's noticed something, and it's usually a bell as a warning. It's an alarm. It's very Mars. So the fact that it was called hear that bell, you only ever use those words in a context when someone's usually saying, hang on, can you hear that bell? Right? So therefore, it's interjecting, it's interrupting a conversation, and someone's making a statement of a warning about something. That's very Mars. So without, what are we going to say, Barbie?
Yeah, I was going to say when you said she's got to go. Well, she being Venus, right?
Yep.
And go action, take action. Mars.
Yes.
Venus,
So this
Mars.
is she's got to go. It's nearly like someone saying this because they're upset with them, they're frustrated, they're annoyed. This person's done something wrong, and sorry, she's just got to go. She's got to go. So, but it also depends on the contexts. The other thing to look at, and there's some more things to look at. Right now, we have Jupiter squaring the midheaven. Remember? Exactly. Okay, if I go back to that. When you've got strong Jupiterian aspects, and it's usually more if, say, the moon was conjunct Jupiter or opposite Jupiter, or the moon is conjunct or opposite Uranus, and they're very closely connecting to the ascendant of the midheaven degree, you often find that the winner is not necessarily a favourite because it's something that's going to pay out or it's something that's going to come from left field. Now, this one here, you can see that's the least favourite in the race. It's 15-1 compared to everyone else. Now, I'm not saying that with that Jupiter in its position just squaring the midheaven that's going to have enough influence. I don't think it will, but we'll wait and see. Starwood. Does anyone know what Starwood would mean? So if I copy that and put it in here, feel free to interact. I'm trying to. So Starwood, if my internet, in English is typically refers to a surname. a woody area, a high quality wood material for construction, a ceramic wood product, or major corporate name. Starwood, so Starwood's used in Starwood hotels and that sort of thing. You can also, there's a number of things here to take into
Oh, it's watching a
consideration.
video. That's what's causing my interruption. Let's
What's
stop
that?
video. I'm sorry. John's on his laptop, video screen streaming, and then I lose connection. I'm sorry. It's
Oh,
not
that's
you.
okay. So Starwood, also, you need to break it down. Star and wood. So in other words, a star being, interestingly enough, to me, stars can also represent Uranus because they're part of a galaxy, but also a star is the sun. And wood tends to be, part of a tree. It's a wooden product. It's Saturnian by nature. So, and it's usually, something that's used in construction or something along those lines. Starwood could also be a corporation. So you all of a sudden you're breaking this down and going, God, where do I start astrologically? How does this work? And this is part of the problem we have when we're trying to do this. So Starwood to me, in this instance, would have something to do with the Sun and Saturn, if you broke them down into the two. Okay, Sun, Saturn, maybe with Uranus, but it's also the favourite of the race. If you look at it, it's 2-1. So it's a pretty strong prospect here. This one, Buckeye Bombshell's been scratched, so we can get rid of him. How you do something. So, how you do something. How would you define that astrologically? This is where it becomes interesting. How you do something. It's the action, I suppose. That to me might be the closest thing to a Mercury. So it's as in how you do something, you're working out what you're doing, you're putting it into practice, but it's an action. So it might be Mercury and Mars together. So working out how you do something is usually working out the mechanics behind it. So this is how I might look at that. So that could be strong too, Mercury and Mars. Watershed moment. So the other thing I tend to do is I will take something like the name, throw it in here because watershed moment, what if it was the name of a movie? It's those sorts of things. A watershed moment is a critical turning point or defining event that fundamentally and permanently changes the direction, policy, or perception of a situation, separating the past from a new era. There you go. It represents a profound shift, often marking before and after moment in history, technology, or a personal journey. So it does have an important meaning. So a watershed moment being a critical turning point, so it's a change of direction, policy or perception. That could definitely have something to do with Mars because it's a change. It's an initiation of a change. But it's also a defining moment in history. So that could be Mars, Saturn as well. Tis Laws Hall. Anyone want to make an attempt at that one? Tis Laws
So
Hall.
laws would go to Jupiter.
Yeah. What's
Yeah.
what's Tis Laws Halls?
I don't know what that is, but I'm in laws. I mean, if you're thinking laws, but I don't know if it could be tis, maybe it's his law. But I also want to say in the chat, I put like you did that wood was be earth, and then the other one was water element. So you could look at the elements as well.
That's right. So watershed moment. A moment is usually Mars because it happens in an instant. Watershed, that's also to do with, you could break that down into Neptune and the moon because it's water. Neptune, moon, and a shed being a structure to protect something, which is Saturn. So this could also have a number of those things. So we're now in a situation where we're going, which one of these do we think is going to win? Does anyone want to make
Where's the chart?
the
Yeah,
chart
I
is?
think look at the chart because you also want to look at the planets and look at the elements of the planet, right? Of the sign and kind of see
Yeah.
if that fits in as well.
Can everyone
Put
see
the
that
whole
okay?
puzzle together.
All right. So we're
Okay.
here in a situation. Now, Cheryl, I'm not sure if were you here for most of this or no? This part
Most
here.
of what?
Just what covering this race?
I'm just coming into this right now, but ironically, I just signed up for the program and I got
Yeah,
into the portal, and the first video I started watching was your lecture on
horse
horse
racing.
race elections.
Well, there you go. Funny that.
So
Well, I've
yeah.
just thought what I was just showing people, like from a chart delineation point of view, what I'm looking for, what works in this instance. So just to backtrack for your purpose, Cheryl, because it's good to go back over it again. When I throw this up on the chart, this is the chart of a particular race. The midheaven will always be the success point. Generally speaking, it will pick the winner. Key points here. When you've got a lot of planets together like this, it's really hard to pick a winner because the energies blend and they blend very, very strongly together. In this particular chart, the obvious one, the most powerful planet out of the lot will be Mars because Mars is in rulership. However, Mars is being restricted by Saturn and it's also conjunct Mercury and it's got, there's 5 planets at the moment, or 5 planets at the moment in a Mars ruled sign. So it's very strong. If this was conjunct the midheaven, it would be even stronger. It has moved away. We then look at the midpoints of what's going on with the midheaven here, and we found that Mars and Saturn was a midpoint with the Sun and the Moon. We just had another horse race we looked at, and I was picking something completely different, and one that won was actually a Sun Saturn. It was Alpine. What was it called? Alpine Princess. So this race is already run. We just don't know who won it yet, so we're just trying to pick one. But I would be looking at this and going, well, that sun was very, very strong because the moon was conjunct it. The moon's just moving away from it as a new moon, so it's pretty powerful. It's in the 10th house. But generally speaking, I wouldn't put a lot of weight on that, except for the fact that it's actually acting as the part of the midpoint between the Mars, Saturn, and there. So I think all of these 4 planets here are going to be very strongly related to what's going on here. Does anyone else? Don't forget that midheaven, Barbie, is in Aries. So we're talking about Mars in a rulership sign. And even the Sun is in Aries. The only thing that's moved and shifted is the Moon's now moved into Taurus, which is, a bit of a nicer spot to be in to start
Yeah,
with.
but then you can also see there's a sextile with that Aries to the Aquarius, Pluto, and Juno.
That's right. There is. Yes,
Right. So
exactly.
yeah. And so and then that trines to Uranus with an upset in that Earth element. So
I think Starwood. I go for Starwood.
You go for Starwood. And why do you say
Yes.
that, Teresa?
Saturn would.
Saturn.
And Mars and the Sun are like the star of the show right now with all this Aries.
Yes, I tend to agree. So I would look at the race. I'm just going to go back to it.
mhm.
The other one I think's got a really strong showing.
Buckeye
is
bombshell.
Yeah, that's been scratched.
Buckeye bombshell. That's scratched.
It's been scratched.
Scratch. I would have chosen that one too.
Yeah.
I would have chose that one.
Now the thing is, I tend to agree with you, Teresa. It's possibly Starwood. If I was to pick, I would go. I think Olympic Star will win. That's my guess. With Starwood coming next,
She's
and
watershed moment.
and
I
watershed
like Watershed Moment too. I
Yeah,
like that one
watershed moment
too.
might be third. So
Do we get to see this one?
Of course we do.
Like who won?
Of course we do. I just got to
Do
get.
it.
I
Do a
just gotta get.
trifecta.
Well, that's what I would normally get. I would say 1, 3, and 6. That would be my sort of. Come on, get out of there. All right, now
Then she's got to go is also very Aries. So
is this the entries or is this the results? We'll find out in a minute. What number? What? Oh, it was the first race, wasn't it?
Oh, in the chat, Luke.
Darwood won.
Oh yeah.
I would.
Yep.
Oh, watershed moment
Yeah.
number 2.
Yep.
Okay. See, what
She's
was
got
the
to go
third?
number 3.
An Olympic
Okay,
star.
trifecta. That would have been the trifecta. See.
Yep. So here we have a situation where And what I normally do, and I'm sort of Robert hasn't cottoned onto this yet. He tends to want to try and go and nail the big dollars. Okay, so he goes after the pick six in a row. But I've now consistently, when we've done say Kentucky Derby times, I said we just need a little bit more money, and what we need to do is pick our first and second horse for every race, one and two, and we cover them with a each way bet. So, for example, you you bet, so I would have just gone then. I would have said Starwood, and I would have said Olympic Star. That would have been my two. I missed with one, the other one would have won. Okay, so if I put $10 each way on for here, so $10 each way is $20, or say $40 in total bet, but you got 10 here paying $31 and 25 there. So all of a sudden you're ahead. You got $31.80 and $25 works out how much? 50 something bucks. So you make your bet. I didn't quite pick the right one, but I spent $40. I'm now up to 51. About 2 years ago when we did the Kentucky Derby, if we had about $400 and we did followed my principle, we would have been up 4,500. But we didn't do it that way. Just by covering our backside. It's like an insurance policy. So what happens here is that, I mean, well done, Teresa. You did pick the right one. But following those principles, you can see how it would work. And you picked it. I would have gone with the same, but it was the favorite, remember. That's the other thing. That's the other thing too. Sometimes when you don't have a clear defining astrological moment or chart, then you have a situation where that sort of comes out that way. Let me just see if I can find.
Can I before you go on,
Yeah.
in the chat, Cheryl asked there's a question here. I suppose using astrology to pick a winner of a race wouldn't be elections, it would be divination, or question mark. Is there a term for this?
Who's written that?
Cheryl. Haru.
Hang on, Cheryl. Pick a winner.
I think
of a
she's still
race.
here,
Wouldn't be
right?
elections.
I can
It
see
would
her.
be
Yeah.
divination.
Yeah,
I'm here.
they're here.
There you are. I see you.
Cheryl, I would turn around and say, I'm only sharing with you what I've done from experience. And you missed the beginning. So initially, why I started doing this was to try and work out if the planets had a physical outcome on the events in life. In other words, do they have a physical effect on us? I'm now convinced they do, and I got good reason as to why. And I could explain that in detail, but I'll leave that for a lecture sometime. But let's call it subatomic particles. Let's call it redirection of energies created by the sun, sent out and redirected by the planets. And where do they build in us? They go through us, but also they build and interact with our spirit selves, not our physical bodies. They go right through our physical bodies. And this is part of the energy field. So I'm just being really quick, really blunt. But when I first started this, I thought, okay, if that's the case, if a planet has more influence over another, when will it do it? And the answer to that is when it's directly above me. When it's right up there, right, when I say that, on the ecliptic, so it might be to an angle, but it's putting more of its influence over that point on Earth than anything else at that moment in time. If at that moment in time, does it have an effect or does it win out over others? And the answer to that is yes, but really only some planets. And what I found as the correlation is the planets that spin fastest do. So some planets are designed to put out, you could say, and some planets are designed to absorb. And if you think about it from a point of view, even in traditional astrology, you've got the moon and Venus. They're the collectors. They're the ones that bring in. So the moon's closest to us, and it collects and it brings information in, and Venus sits back and it collects. Well, Venus turns at 243 days. So it takes 243 days to turn around once. It's going so slow it just absorbs. Mars takes 24 hours and 32 minutes. It's much smaller, but look at Mars's energy and its influence on us as an energetic being. Mars causes heat, disruption, cuts, abrasions, accidents, fights, wars, anger. Can you imagine if Venus spun at the same rate as Mars? My belief would be we wouldn't exist on this planet. It would be too destructive. So, therefore, when you start getting further out, the bigger planets spin fast. Jupiter takes 9 hours and 50 minutes to turn around once. So, although it's a fair way away, its influence on us is strong. So, when you have Jupiter transits, you feel them. Saturn, 10 hours and 17 minutes, I think it is. Uranus is about 16, 17 hours, and so is Neptune. It's when you get to Pluto that it turns slowly again. But I was wondering why, for example, I'll use another example. When I was first looking at this, I remember looking at a horse race with 24 horses in it. And it was at the time when, and some of you guys might have been born around then, just about, I'm not sure, but it was when we had the Uranus-Neptune conjunction in Capricorn. And as it was passing the midheaven of the chart of a race, Uranus-Neptune conjunction exact on the midheaven, the horse in the race that stood out to me was a horse called Sea Rhythm. So the Sea being Neptune and Rhythm being Uranus. And it was paying 66 to 1. And I went, ugh, what's the chance of it winning? So I thought, and it was like a roughie from hell, you know. Remember I said Uranus often represents horses that are not necessarily the favourites, they're going to win. So what happened was I went, you know what, I'll put $2 each way on it. It paid $71 for the win. And I went, why didn't I put $200 on it? Don't worry, there are a lot of stories like that. But there's those sorts of things that made me go, well, hang on, so why would two planets that are so far away have a big influence over the outcome of that event? Unless they're putting out an energy field which is of its own quite strong. And that doesn't matter. It's not a physical thing that we feel. It's an energetic subatomic particle that collects in the energy fields which are part of our existence. And that's what the relationship is. That's why it's important. So when you say is it divination, Cheryl, not quite. It's me looking at it going, well, if this planet's got an effect, which planets have more effect than others? And how I found out that was through experience. The sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, and Pluto, when they were on the midheaven, they were not reliable to pick a winner. But Mars, Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune were all really reliable. And I couldn't put the correlation to it. I went, why? Until I found out how fast they spin. And that was the relationship between them. So this sent me on this whole path. And what I was doing now was pretty much, you know, as I said, for the last 5 years, I've been helping Robert sort of try and get our heads around picking the 6 winners in a row. But you can see the other thing I love it, Teresa, how you've just listened to me for, you know, half an hour. You sit down and you go, no, I like Starwood, and you get it right. My head's already overly influenced by all of the different mistakes and things I've done for years. You're coming with fresh eyes and it's going, great, perfect, way to go. And say with you, Courtney, you said, look, watershed moment. So a watershed moment is something that changes direction. Bang, it's Mars. So, but we are in a situation where this particular race doesn't have a purely Mars horse, does it? We don't have one.
Scratched. The bombshell scratched.
Well, yeah, it was scratched. Buckeye bombshell. It's probably scratched. Now let me just go and get out of that. And
I actually have to run, Luke, but I want to say thank you. Okay.
you're
Thanks
welcome.
for this.
I
I'll see you. I'll
Yeah,
see
I
you
got it
next
right
time.
too.
No worries at all. So how are we going for time? What about we do one other and have a look at it? What I was thinking of doing was trying to find a race when we've got a planet on the midheaven. Let's have a look. And we'll see what the difference is. So we're in race 1. Let's go to, where's that chart?
And I'm gonna bug out too because it's my date night. So I'm gonna.
Oh, date night. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And for at least a week, and then I got to go back. You know, so I won't
Okay.
have a date night. All right, thank you, and
All right.
I'm sure you'll figure it all out. You'll get it next time.
We will.
All right, thank you.
See you, Barbie. All right. Let's go back to here. Let's try and find a horse race running at about 134. Uh, is there one running at 134? Uh-huh. 132. There you go. There's a good one. So let's go to this one. When it decides to go. Here we go. Cat Island. So let's have a look at the chart first. And I'm going to,
Luke, are you using Windows 11?
yeah.
Did you know that if you make the window up on the right corner, you'll be able to like make the window smaller so you can move it around the screen? And then if you grab with your mouse the top bar, the title bar, and drag it up to the center middle of the screen. Well, let's go step by step.
I hear you, but I probably won't want to learn new stuff right now.
All right. Well, if you did, it would be able to show the chart and your other window on the same screen. That would make it a lot easier for
Everybody.
folks to be able to
Yeah, let's have a look.
compare the information.
Oh, hang on.
So yeah, that button up there with the two boxes, and then the bar that says solar fire, you drag it up to the top center of Windows all the way up.
What about that?
Yeah, I mean, sure, yeah, making the two windows small, and yeah, that's perfect and
Well,
a
let's just
lot
do
less
that for the moment.
complicated.
Can everyone read it? Okay. Can everyone see them? Read it okay?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Anne. How are you? I can see Anne's still here. Um, all right. So this will be an interesting. And the other thing is, every time I do this, watch, it's going to disappear. So I've got to be able to just bring that to there. I hear what you're saying, Cheryl. I'm sort of stuffing it up, but anyway, we'll work it out. Chiron on the midheaven, which is interesting. So at this particular point, this chart, we've got Chiron literally right on the midheaven with the sun and the moon. Now, it's also Aries as the ruler. Let's have a look at. I want to get out of. That's in animation. What have I done? Nope, wrong one. Okay. No, it was in animation anyway. I'm just going to have to do that. No, I won't. I'm going to do this. Sorry, all. Rectify. You're going to go, geez, he's a bit slow. And the answer to that is possibly, not always, but today I am.
Well, also, I don't think that people that don't do this realize how, even using computers, how tedious casting charts can be.
Yeah. So here we have, it's a very interesting scenario because we've got the midheaven is Mars at 26 degrees. What I'm looking for now is I just want to do the report. So I want to go to the midpoints. But the midheaven, we've got Jupiter and Pluto, and it's a very strong midpoint. Look, it's only 4 minutes off. Jupiter and Juno is the same. And the Sun and Chiron, obviously, because the Sun and Chiron are right up there on the top of the chart. But that Jupiter Pluto. So if I go back out of there for a second, so Pluto and Jupiter are also the midpoint is the midheaven right now. So they're going to have an influence, Whether we like it or not, they do. That's how it tends to work. What's their relationship, though? We have a very simple relationship of the ruler of the midheaven is Mars. Mars is in Aries, and it's disposited by itself. So there's no sort of, it doesn't go any further. But Mars is very closely conjunct Saturn. It's conjunct Mercury, but it's getting closer to Saturn. This has got the Sun right conjunct the midheaven with the Moon. So the Moon being so close to the Sun, it's sort of gone away from it, but it's still close. It's still having influence. And we saw that because look at the horses that won. Star being the Sun, right? And Saturn. And also we had Alpine, which is sort of like something cold, mountainous, which is very Saturn. And we had Princess, which is the Sun. So we seem to have this Sun-Saturn conjunction or Sun-Saturn aspect going on. But the Sun is also with the Moon. So if we got Cat Island, how would a cat is Venusian, correct? And an island can be Saturn and Neptune primarily. Horsing around, which is interesting, which is joking around or mucking around. Horsing around would be something very playful and Jupiterian, I suppose. But it's not like mucking around, which would be mercurial, someone who's being a bit mischievous. Horsing around's a bit more cumbersome, isn't it? It's like you're sort of involving everybody and you're being a goof. So it's sort of, that's very Jupiterian. Starship Godiva or Godiva. So Starship Godiva. Well, that's interesting. So a starship would be, that's definitely Uranian. And Godiva, well, we know who Lady Godiva was. Let's put it in anyway. Is a not standard recognized word. Starship Godiva, okay? The Old English name Godiva, it means gift of God. It's a name, a noblewoman, Lady Godiva, known for her courage, bravery, and self-sacrifice to help her townspeople.
Well, she also, I mean, was primarily known for riding nude, bareback on a
On a
horse.
horse, exactly, she was,
Yeah.
through her town and making a statement. So, known for her courage and bravery to do that, to be naked on a horse, going through the town. So Starship Godiva, how would you put that into astrological planets? This is where it becomes interesting. It's in the interpretation. A starship is definitely Uranian because it's a spacecraft. And Godiva would be a noble woman known for her bravery. So it's sort of Uranus with the moon because she's a well-known woman, public figure, and it's older. So it's moon, Saturn, sun. So it's actually quite a strong placement if you want to look at it that way. Now, where do I find? I'm going to move that again to get to here. Okay. Starship Godiva. Sorry, I'm still going around in circles. Smoking hot stuff. Would that not be Mars or would that be Venus? Because smoking hot stuff, hot might be, if you look at it from a Mars point of view, I would say it's Venus and Mars, but smoking hot stuff is a term used for someone who's quite attractive, which is very Venus. This is where it becomes interesting. Satura. What does Satura mean? Let's have a look at that one. Satura is the Latin and Romance language. It's a language term for satura, meaning a seam or joining. It primarily refers to an immovable joint between skull bones or the stitch used to close a wound. The plural is suture. So sutura, it's like basically it's a suture. It's It's very Mars and Saturn, isn't it? But it's the joining though, so it's really got a Venus association to it. Um, a rigid, immovable joint connecting bones in the skull and medical surgery. So it's definitely Saturn Mars. And being a thread or a wire, would that also be mercurial? Because it ties it together. So that one might have a strong impact there. Let's go back to the next horse. Becomes very interesting, doesn't it? Based on the search results, there's no direct definition of it, this called Norcareza. So therefore, this is a word that doesn't really exist. But Nakia means acting, Norcor means servant in Italian words. Let's try Italian. Means nausea, to be sick. So what would nausea, because it's normally in the stomach, which is the moon, but is there an actual rulership under Rex's for nausea? Yeah, nausea is Saturn and Cancer. So it's definitely Saturn. But isn't it interesting how you look at that and you go, what does that mean? Then you have to do a bit of a search to find out. Very important to do these searches when you're doing it. So maxi, I could have it in Italian, but I'm going to go in English. Means very large, extra large, or high intensity. Derived from the Latin maximus. It's commonly used as compound words to denote superior size or scope, such as, so maxi. If I do that in English, probably going to find it's the same. Often used as extra long, extra large, or maximum. Yeah. So we're talking about it being large. So that's very Jupiterian. Okay. So we've got a Jupiterian horse. We'll get out of there. An endless glory. There we go. So to be endless, what's that planet? Any idea what
So
endless? What's that?
can you pull up the chart again? All right.
I'll do that in just a sec. Endless, something having no limit, boundary, or conclusion, appearing to last forever. So endless is like eternity or infinite, limitless. So when we go to that, limitless or infinity is Pluto, believe it or not.
So I'm actually gonna give that to Chiron because of the endless quality of the wound, the infinite wound, especially because Chiron is at the midheaven. So that was actually the first thing that I saw when you pulled up the chart and the list here.
Yeah.
I could be
Just
wrong.
endless. Endurance is Saturn, but that's endurance. Now, it doesn't say endless, but I'd say it'd be under infinity or infinite. The infinitesimal is Pluto. I learnt that the hard way, thinking it was Neptune. And I lost a race based on that a while back. Infinite. Just gonna check. Yeah, the infinitesimal is Pluto, to go on forever, which you wouldn't think that, would you? You would think it was maybe Neptune. Sorry, Carol. No, it's getting late for you. All right. Well, this will be our last one. Then I reckon we give it a stop. So I like what you've said, Cheryl Ann. The question is, so I'm going to go through Sutura, I should say. That had, I'm going to get rid of that. There's their, that's their weightings. Let me just get rid of this for a second. Jupiterian, Uranus, and we would say Moon, Saturn, Venus and Mars. This could be Mars, Saturn, and possibly even Mercury. Nausea, which was Saturn with Moon, Jupiter. Endless Glory, that could be Pluto and Mars, if you broke that down as well. Although you put the infinite as being Chiron, which is up on the midheaven. Cat Island, I'm not sure about that either. Horsing around is actually, funnily enough, the favourite. Now, let me go
I
back to
just
the
want
chart.
to interject. Suture, wound. Just
I tend
throwing
to
that out there.
agree. I tend to agree with you as being probably the strongest. The interesting thing, though, is we do have this Sun Moon together. Now, I'm going to put a disclaimer in, and this is part of the recording. There is no definite horse in this race that's just, say, the Sun and Moon. There's no definite horse in this race that's just Mars, i.e., anyone can win. That's really how this works out. If you want to pick an actual winner, you wait till you've got a horse in the race that relates to the planet that's on the midheaven. Ideally, in this place, you'd be waiting for Mars or something Mars-Saturn. And I use the example as a horse called Fortress or Cold Sword would be another one. You know, a cold sword with Saturn and Mars. You know, those sorts of things would be very, very strong. But we don't have a horse like that. There's not one in there. So you can't just rely on it. Picking a winner here is not going to be easy. You do have Chiron there. Is there a horse that relates specifically to Chiron or a wound? Suture. If you think about it, a wound is a suit, having to stitch someone up. That's the other reason why I sort of thought, well, it's a wound that needs healing. That's definitely that one there. So I tend to be favouring along the same line as you, Carolyn, but I could be wrong. We all could be wrong here. Let me just go back to the horses and then we'll have a quick last minute look. Sutura is one of the favourites, along with Starship Godiva. I don't see initially that those would be the case. Jupiter being Maxi, believe it or not, because of that close square to the midheaven may do something, because don't forget, Jupiter is in exaltation, but I don't see it strong enough on its own. Really, who wants to make a choice? Carolyn, who do you favour? Cheryl Ann?
I'm going to go with Sutura.
Sutura? And what about you?
Sorry.
Go, Cheryl Ann.
I'm sticking with Endless Glory.
Okay. Endless Glory. Don't forget we have that Jupiter-Pluto midpoint to the midheaven. And, so if I was to look at this, I would go, the ring in might be something like you said, Endless Glory or Maxi, because Max is being Jupiter and expansion. But I don't think there's enough Venus influence for smoking hot stuff. I don't think there's enough Uranus influence for Starship or Godiva. It could be, but being its position, it might get a place. Horsing around is Jupiter. In my eyes, it's Jupiter. But it's also being playful. So I don't think it should win. I would turn around and think you would have, me personally, I would go with 5, probably followed by probably followed by 3 and 2. I'd probably go 5, 3, and 2, with one of these potentially being one that gets a place. If I was to back these, I would back them for a place, a win and a place. So let's have a look who won, eh? Race 2. Starship Godiva and Satura. There you go. So the interesting thing here, that sun moon was stronger than we think. Because the star is the sun. Godiva was sort of, she's a public figure, she's Saturnian, but she won. Look, Starship Godiva. And so this one came nowhere, came no one, horsing around. Remember, I said even though it was the favourite, it came nowhere. But Satura came second. So in my case, I would have picked. Did I say Starship Godiva second? Did I say that? I would have picked
You
Satura to come.
mentioned it on upper on your list.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think I just said before I'd go Satura first, followed by Starship Godiva. Instead, I would have gone second. I would have got the wrong way round. Would have got a Quinella, which pays $16.73. But what I would normally do if I picked my 2 and I did my win in a place, and then I tried something exotic. If I put my $10 on for a win and $10 on for a place, I would have won $120 on this one, or 100, nearly 130, and this one I would have got another 40. So it would have been $170 for my $40 bet. That's how I would do it to build up my money. So in this instance, even if I got something wrong, but you were right. So Carolyn, if you turn around and said, "Oh look, I'm going to go with Satura," and you put it on for a win and a place, and you went, "Oh, okay, I came second," you still would have got your money back if you'd backed 2 horses. Do you know which one you would have picked as your second one, Carolyn? You're muted. We can't hear you. Still muted.
No, I didn't. I didn't pick it. I didn't have.
Didn't pick a
No one
second
else
one.
jumped out at me.
Okay. So either way, so what I'm saying is what I tend to do is I'll go, let me pick 2. And I usually go 1, 2, 3, 4, play around with them a bit. I'll go through a lot more with it myself. So for example, like I think I said with you guys, I might go, what's their form like? So if I wanted to know about Starship Godiva, I might open that up and get out of the way, Mr. Screen Access. Come on, get out. God, I can't even get to it. I'll do it this way. There we go. It's only ran once and came first. So that's not, if you go to results, it's only ever run once before. And what I might do is I'll go and have a look at the little chart of it. Is it coming up? It's bizarre. Didn't come up. Oh, there it is. Just didn't like me because I had it in that mode. It won by 1 1/4 lengths in its last. It only ran once. That was its first race. When it says only ran one, it was the race we're talking about. So it hadn't run before. So we wouldn't have been able to check. When it says it's only run once, that's it. Must have been a maiden race. That's what they did. They ran for the first time. Yeah. Maiden special weight. So these horses hadn't run before. None of them. That's what it comes down to. So, all right. So I might finish up here unless anyone's got any questions.
Thank you, Luke. This was very interesting.
Thank you.
It's just I didn't know what to do. And I thought, you guys, this is like, the idea of this is delineation practice. So what I'm trying to do is go, here's another way of delineating. and I'm using it for a specific purpose. And there's a lot more to this. And I did a whole lecture and course on it, even down to there are other things to take into consideration. I'll tell you one other thing I will show you quickly. Um, I'll share something with you. I've just got to share my screen again. So let me get out of that. And let me get out of that. So here's the transits for me today, right? Here's where they are for me. What I will do is I look for certain things. In my own chart, I know when the moon's in Taurus, it's good for me. It always works well. Why? My moon's natally in Taurus, and the Venus, the ruler of my moon, is natally in my second house of money. Okay? So the other week when we had the sun was in square with Jupiter, those 2 days I worked it where I waited for the part of fortune to come around and hit that Jupiter and Venus. I think it was Venus it was hitting. And I went out and played poker machines and won about $3,000. Right? So and don't get me wrong, you've sort of got to be patient. You just can't do it all the time. But what I will do, and I've actually put it in my little diary today, that I think I'll show you here. So this is just a little thing to think about. You've got to be careful. You've got to look at your own chart. There's more to it. But my part of fortune natally is in Cancer. So while Jupiter's in Cancer, it's been a bit iffy, been back and forth for me. Why? Because Jupiter's transiting my 8th house. So sometimes it's taking money away, not giving it to me. I've got to look at how it works. So if I go and animate this for a minute here, and I go ahead by an hour, boom, you'll notice the part of fortune moving pretty quickly, right? Here we are here. So at 11:58 a.m. today, that part of fortune will be starting to come up towards Jupiter. And when I go forward by minutes, at about this time, when I've got my part of fortune sign rising, part of fortune can nearly conjunct my part of fortune, and it's about to hit Jupiter at 12:05 p.m. For that 10-minute period, watch, bang, 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 to about there, maximum. So maybe 12-minute period. That's the time I might go and gamble. And if I win, I win. And if I
So
don't, I leave by this point.
Do
And
do
it
you
would,
mean when transit part of fortune is
yes,
is in conjunction with your natal part of fortune or your natal
no.
Jupiter?
No, when it's conjunct Jupiter in the sky at the time.
Oh,
At the time, on the day. So during the course of a day. So for example, I might also use this as a time to send out an email that's important.
yeah.
You get it? I look
Yes.
for when it's connecting for a positive to give me the right result. The interesting thing about this one, have a look what will be happening at the same time. The sun will be directly conjunct the midheaven, and the moon will be sitting up there. So if the moon is ruling that Jupiter and the part of fortune's conjunct it, it's not a bad time for me. I look at it and I go, sun right on the midheaven. Why is that important? The sun in my chart natally is in the second house of money. Moon in Taurus, moved away enough to be in Taurus. It's in a nice sign for me. So in whole sign, it's great as well. And my part of fortune is 10 degrees of Cancer, natally, my natal part of fortune. So this might be at 12:11 p.m. today in my hometown, which will be in about just under an hour. I might walk down to the pub and put, $50 in the poker machine and see if I start kicking in a win. And now, when I've done this in the past, I've walked sometimes away with $2,000, $3,000. So I don't mind investing $100 myself, but I only do it when I know my chances are increased.
Hmm.
You get it? This is part of
Yeah.
what I've learnt and the interpretation side of it. So just, I don't say to you, run out and start putting all your money in a poker machine. Look at your chart. This is something we can talk about later. This is part of my activities involving risk, you know, workshop I did for 4 weeks. That's available. It's recorded, but it's there, and it explains a lot of this sort of stuff. And I went through, and I've got examples of how. Just so you know, and I'll leave you on this note. Another strong contender with the part of fortune is it works well at conjunct Venus. Not always. It's not as strong as Jupiter. But the other one, which is really interesting, but you've got to have a few things lining up, is Pluto tends to be the biggest. When that part of fortune's conjunct Pluto, and it's only comes through certain times of the month, if you've got other things lining up. So if you had, for example, the part of fortune conjunct Pluto, let me just show you a chart. I'll do it this way. They're all launch charts. I think I can make it up. Win. I'm going to go to, I think, let's go 25 November. I think it's going to go 2024, I think it was. And I'm going to go to about, I'll tell you if it's the right day in a minute. 9:24. Oh, no, about 10:20 p.m., I think. 20 p.m. And I'm going to go to Jamestown. God. It doesn't like you doing that. I've got to go and change the country. There we go. Was that it? No, that's not it. Okay. Hmm. Uh, that's not it. So I've got the day wrong. Hang on. I know where to find it. My trusty. Ah, guess what? I'm out by a year. Okay. See this one? On this particular day, on this particular time, I didn't realize at the time because I was still analyzing, but I knew with this Moon Jupiter conjunction here that was moving through, with the Moon Cancer rising at the time. And the other interesting one was Jupiter was in Taurus. The Sun was conjunct my ascendant. But look at this one. Exact. At that point in time, on that day, Lydia and I were at the pub and we won a grand jackpot for $9,000 on a poker machine. At exactly that moment. And it's made me go, well, hang on a minute, what's this? So that's what I started working with, the part of fortune transits. Because although this was there and we were doing okay and we were winning, because it was a good aspect in general, when that came around and hit was when it actually paid out. And that's probably the big key point. Oh, my finger's bleeding. Sorry, all right. On that note, there's been a lot covered.
Wow, Luke, that was, thank you for sharing that.
That's okay. So we can work with other things down the track on all that sort of stuff. But it's there's a lot, and I'm still like everything with astrology. I'm still learning. It's an ongoing event, ongoing scenario, but we are getting, more and more refined in our capacity to do it. You guys joining, Carolyn? What you're in Nat 5 this semester, aren't you?
Yep, I'm signing up this weekend.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yep.
But I was just going to say, yeah, it's
I think it's
yeah,
going to be a lot of fun.
yeah. And Cheryl Ann's coming back to study, and she's starting in
I
PSM
I
one.
just signed up today.
Yeah, I saw that. So the
Yeah.
new moon, perfect time to do it.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, look, I'm
Thank you,
glad
Luke.
I'm glad you've enjoyed, and I will stop the recording